Can you read? That's not what I want you to read. I want you to read something else. Where's my thing at? Can you just read that to me so I can make sure your audio's fine?
Whether we wanted it or not, we've stepped into a war with the Cabal on Mars. Let's get taking out their command one by one. Valus Torek. From what I can gather, he commands the siege dancers from an Imperial land tank just outside of Rubicon. He's well protected, but with the right team, we can punch through those defenses, take this beast out, and break their grip on Freehold.
Thanks for reading that. You sound amazing. How's your week been today?
Oh, it's a sleepy Thursday.
Sleepy Thursday. You didn't know we're recording this on a Thursday. Don't know when I'm going to release this, but we're recording it on a Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Did you read the news today? All the TWAB and stuff?
Yes, I did.
We'll get into that here in a little bit. I was just seeing if you read that. So just a little background on the podcast. Started this just kind of get in the minds of content creators, any kind of people, mainly focused around Destiny, because that's what I spend most of my time at. So thanks for joining me, Doc. I
No problem.
appreciate it. If you're not familiar with Doc, he is probably the best Sherpa, in my opinion, the one that I've spent the most time with, so maybe I'm biased, but that's okay. Being biased
Oh, you're too kind. There's people that are much better.
Well, I'm allowed to say what I want, so. But first and foremost, how did you start getting into creating content? I know you do have some YouTube content and you do Twitch content as well. You stream more than just Destiny, and you just did Dragon Quest, did a complete playthrough of that. But how did you get into, whether it be watching or creating your own content, how did you get into it?
Well, as far as streaming, I'm actually coming up on my 2-year stream anniversary. I think was earlier this month.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Peter. I had towards the end of Destiny 1, I had wanted to give the game one last hurrah before Destiny 2 dropped, and I decided to do a full playthrough of every single PvE content there was in Destiny 1, not including stuff that had anything to do with Crucible. So like the sword quests all involved some sort of Crucible kill, so they weren't involved. But every other quest, side quest, exotic quest that there was, like the Kvastav, all that stuff. Kvastav, Necrochasm, Touch of Malice, Outbreak Prime.
Mm-hmm.
All those exotic quests. No time to explain. I'm not too sure if there was anything involved with PvP with that one, but I did all those on a second account, and I streamed the entire playthrough.
How long did that take you to
Start
get
to
through
finish.
all of it? Just Destiny 1 PvE content, aside from exotic quests that had PvP in them.
So I went from starting the game up until when I had no quests in the director or whatever it was at the time, where all the quests are being held and bounties and stuff. It took about 70 hours, I think, to go through everything, and that's with full knowledge of the game and how to get everything.
Weird. I'm recording through OBS, and I guess I just got a follow in the middle of this. I'm like, why is that audio playing? But nonetheless, you didn't hear it. I was like, what is the dog playing right now? Oh, that was me. So pretty much you started your content with Destiny 1, but majority of your content that you said played is pretty much in Destiny 2, which is where I met you, is playing Destiny 2. I didn't get to play with you in Destiny 1 at all because we didn't play Destiny 1 on the same platform.
No.
So, Um, most of the content you create on Destiny 2 is PvE. I know you do get into PvP. You don't necessarily like PvP, but you're a much better PvPer than what you give yourself credit for. So, uh,
I have definitely improved in PvP. After soloing for Revoker earlier this season, I decided to give myself a challenge at the start of the season. In addition to getting Revoker, I wanted to hit 2100 solo in comp. And I did that a couple of weeks ago.
and what would you say to people that, because I know there's been lots of people that talk about, soloing to X, whatever number it may be in comp. What did you find worked for you? Because if people don't know, you do play on a controller on PC, and you don't limit yourself to things that are only good with controller. You limit your things to weapons that you want to use. So can you talk in a little bit like how you got your comp to 2100 or Fabled solo?
So a lot of it, I will say, is getting lucky. You'll go on streaks. It's a lot of luck and persistence, to be honest. You get matched up on teams, and you'll get it in long streaks where you just don't get matched up with. You get matched up with, Thumbs McGee or the guy that can't shoot or do anything, and you get like 3 of those on your team. And you'll have
Yeah.
like 10 games in a row where that's the case. And you just kind of have to just keep pushing through that. Eventually, you'll start to get on these streaks to where you're actually getting matched up with people that are equal to your skill or better. And it's not really you're writing the coattails, but you use playlist to teach you how to play the playlist.
Okay.
Like learning to not just poke your head out in lanes, how to team shoot, how to stick with your teammates. Um, Obviously solo. I didn't do a single match with another person, by the way. So like making callouts wasn't anything I did, but making sure I'm not taking on 2v1s. Try not to leave people in a lurch. Like don't go off on your own just across the map while your other 3 teammates are on the other side of the map.
Yeah.
Um, Play with the weapons you're comfortable with. I'm very comfortable with hand cannons and snipers and even shotties. I have a decent shotty. Um, and for both the kinetic and energy slots, so I can kind of switch out with everything
Just
as I see
and
fit.
I saw a lot of people that would post about going solo in comp, and they were kind of leveraging when they would play. And I know you really didn't do that, being as it, you do work a full-time job, so it's kind of like playing whenever you can.
Right,
So you would normally play probably around this time that we're playing right now. We're
right.
5:18 in the evening Central Time, so now or quite possibly in maybe in the early mornings. I know as a time that people like to play if they're playing comp,
Yeah.
but you pretty
I
much
did
just
most of it.
you played what the game gave to you. You didn't really kind of try to work around anything.
No, I really don't. As weird as it sounds, I'm on Twitch and I create content on Twitch by streaming. I don't outside of my streams, I watch it, but it's not like a religious thing where I always have Twitch up.
Yeah,
So I don't really like watch the directory to see when like all the comp, people are doing comp carries and stuff like that. I don't pay attention to any of that. I just get on when I could.
yeah. You get on and play, and you tackle the task ahead of you, whatever it may be.
Right.
So backing away a little bit from Destiny, because I know you like to talk about, and I know you like to play lots of other games.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, what are your first memories of possibly playing games whenever you were younger? Like, what got you into gaming? What got you into now content creation? And eventually, doing what you do, what I would say best, which is chirping. Like, how did you get into that? Like, what kind of formed you into that?
So this kind of goes way back. When I mean way back, I mean Atari. No, that really didn't get me into it.
You're
So
not that old. You're not that old.
growing up, I always had video game systems in the house. My dad was a video gamer. He loved to play pinball machines, and he used to play Atari and Nintendo with us all the time. In fact, he still plays like turn-based role-playing games, JRPGs.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting harder and harder for him to find games that he can physically play
Mm-hmm.
because everything's going these action-oriented games where you need to have a lot of hand-eye coordination, and that's just is as you get older, you lose those motor skills to be able to do that stuff
Yeah.
quickly. But so I had grown up with role-playing games. on Nintendo, stuff like Final Fantasy, Dragon Warrior, as it was called then. Games like that, going all the way through Super Nintendo with the Final Fantasy 2 and 3 here in America. I think it's 6, 4 and 6, I think, over in Japan.
Yeah.
And then stretching into even PlayStation 2 era with Final Fantasies 7, 8, 9, 10. I think it's 12 is the one with lightning. But yeah, pretty much playing role-playing games all through there. That led to probably one of my favorite games of all time. I played a game called Phantasy Star Online.
Hmm.
I played it on the GameCube. It originally released on the Dreamcast, so it was a port over to GameCube. But me and my younger brother and two of my friends all had characters that we had leveled. So the GameCube had ports for game, essentially memory cards.
Mm-hmm.
You could save your progress for your character on. So we would all get on the same TV. We would play split screen, all four of us in the same room. And a lot of the aspects that are in Destiny actually came straight from Phantasy Star Online. Phantasy Star Online, you had 3 different types of classes you could play. It was a Force, a Ranger, and a Warrior. Hunter is what it was called.
Yeah.
Essentially, Hunter is like a Titan. Ranger would be kind of like what a Hunter is now, and then a Force would be a Warlock.
Okay.
And then there was 3 different races that you could play as. Like right now, there's in Destiny, it's Human, Awoken, or Exo. And there it was Humar. Oh god, this is a dated game. I can't even remember the other ones. One was a robot, and then the other one was like an elf type class, like Whirl, I think is what it was called.
Yeah, so pretty relatable to the 3 classes that we have
Right.
in Destiny. Or races,
Right.
not classes.
There's a lot of differences to the games. So like in Phantasy Star Online, you had a name system that assigned you an ID. Like Oran or Viridia was an ID. And those IDs were linked to your character. They were based off of your character's name. So you could like manipulate the name if you wanted to get a specific ID. And that ID determined what monsters drop what items in the game.
Okay.
So what it would allow for is insane grinding for specific things. So when you got to the hardest difficulty in the game, and this one specific monster dropped, let's say an item I know I went for a lot was an item called a Meteor Cudgel. It was a kind of like a Darth Maul saber that you could get in the hardest level in the game. It dropped from one of the basic enemies, let's say for Viridia's ID. So you could go into that encounter with a Viridia ID and just kill all of that monster throughout the entire arena. And every time you kill it, it would have a chance to drop that item.
Mm-hmm.
But if someone was an Oran, that monster would drop a different item if they killed it.
Mm-hmm.
Or have a chance to. And the drop rates were insane. Like, I'm talking like 1 out of like 2,000.
Yeah, I remember seeing somewhere online that somebody had posted him like in relation to Destiny, and it was like something on one of the Phantasy Star Online ones was like a 0.02% for something to drop. Like it was nuts. Like that's absolutely insane. A 0.02%. I think that whenever it was first released before they buffed it, like 1K was a 2%.
Yeah.
Just imagine having 10% of that.
Yeah, it's drop rates in it were crazy. It was a fun grind. But I think it was probably too much.
Mm-hmm.
It just got to the point where like you would get these really cool weapons and they would be rare. And then your buddy was also playing and maybe he didn't get anything.
Just
it
kind of seemed like it would turn into being like just way too much of a time investment just to get something pretty simple almost.
Right. Like the mechanics of it all were pretty fun because you'd run through and you do your buffs and your debuffs. Your force would essentially run with you with the other hunters and rangers in the group. And the forces would buff your attacks and buff your defense, and then it would debuff the opponent's defense and attacks so that you could survive more. Like the mechanics were really good. And the playthrough was, I would say, pretty difficult, especially when you get into episode 2, which I don't think ever released on Dreamcast, but it did on the GameCube.
Yeah.
But the loot chase, it was there, but it was hard and it was very grindy. And it was frustrating when you would go 2 or 3 nights of playing because, at the time, I was in school still
Yeah.
when we played it. And I would have a chance to play on, I think we'd get together like maybe Fridays and Saturday nights. And we would have just whole weeks where nothing. We would go for a specific item, and sometimes we just wouldn't get anything.
That sounds familiar. When you
Now,
run through your 3 drops of a raid and you don't get anything.
One of the cool things they did is some of the enemies had rare enemy type. So, for instance, there's an enemy called a Gnar Lily, or Ob Lily, in the hardest difficulty in one area. And there was a chance, if you came across an Ob Lily, when you go into the room when the enemy spawn, that it could turn into a Mill Lily, which is a rare version of that enemy. And those actually had higher chances to drop different items. So it was a whole thing. You could essentially get to a patch to where, let's say, you see like 15 Oblilies in one room. You could use a thing called a telepipe. It lets you warp back to what is essentially the tower in Destiny 2, or in Destiny in general. And you could re-enter the telepipe and go back, and it would respawn all the enemies and give you another chance to see a rare enemy. So if any of those had anything that you wanted, you could literally just get to that room and just keep going back and forth until you found one.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So since we're talking so much about other games and mob lilies and different characters, if you could bring one character either as an NPC or as a playable character into Destiny from any other game, what would you bring and why?
Into Destiny?
Yeah.
Playable character from another game into Destiny.
Could be an NPC or it could be a playable one. To say, for instance, like you could bring Link into Destiny and you would essentially have Destiny powers that, say, Link has or has access to in the Zelda world.
Huh.
Or Link could be an NPC and he could give you all kinds of stuff from Hyrule.
I think Samus Aran from Metroid would be cool. It would honestly kind of fit the theme of the game, too.
Now, what all like powers or like abilities would she have transferred over if you could I'm assuming you're saying if you would play as her.
Yeah. So she does, in most of the games, she has you can get a screw attack, which is you do a spin jump and then it does damage to enemies while you're in air. She has different types of beams that she shoots from her essentially arm cannon in her suit. So that could be like a permanent primary weapon that's always on her. They could maybe change elements. She can turn into a ball, and drop bombs, which could be something.
Drop bombs on them.
Changing the level of engagement.
Hold on, guys, turn into a ball. I'm gonna drop these bombs.
Yep. I mean, that would be useful because if someone could see your head and starting to hit you, you could just quick turn into a ball and you'd duck down essentially.
Yeah. Be like
and then you could honestly
crouch.
roll out of the way too.
Be like an ultra crouch, like you just crouch even harder.
Yeah.
Assume the position. There's an earthquake coming. Super crouch, dude. Spam your control key even harder.
Yep.
Or what was it for whenever I played Puppeteer? That would be click your right joystick. Super hard.
Yeah.
So that's enough about other games. We'll get back into Destiny. Before we start talking about a little bit of the news that was today, How did you kind of work your way into becoming a Sherpa? How did this come about?
So one thing I've always enjoyed in my professional career in working is I've always enjoyed teaching and showing people things.
Mm-hmm.
So like explaining how to do raids and stuff after I had already learned how to do raids because I didn't do them initially with people. I honestly started the game playing solo
Mm-hmm.
for probably about 6 months. I hadn't touched a raid. One of my buddies who got me into the game invited me to do a King's Fall with him, and then a Crota, and then we did another King's Fall. But I thought they were so cool because of the teamwork involved with, having 6 people. And I got involved with Sin City. And from there, it just kind of took off with all the people there, essentially not necessarily taking me under their wing, but showing me all the raids at the time.
And for
So
people
it would have
listening,
been
if you don't know what Sin City is, it's Syntax Seven's community's name.
showing me the raids. Like currently, it was King's Fall, so that was the first one I learned, um, really well. And then it was going back and learning Vogue, which wasn't relevant at the time, and Crota, which also wasn't relevant at the time. And that kind of led up until, so that was like around the April update, which was after King's Fall dropped,
Mm-hmm.
about 6 months after King's Fall. So after that minor update, I pretty much did King's Fall exclusively up until when Wrath of the Machine dropped after Rise of Iron. And we went in the first weekend, and we got it. I want to say we got it on the Monday before. It might not even be the Monday before. I think we may have gotten it after that. But it was really after Wrath of the Machine is where I really picked up on wanting to bring people through that haven't done it before, and be able to go through it from the beginning of when the raid dropped and, learn all the mechanics and then be able to explain how to do, everything with the strats that we were using. Like sword strat wasn't even a thing in Wrath of the Machine initially.
No, it was a few weeks.
I was using Raise Lighter to kill captains
Yeah.
way before that was even a thing. And it wasn't even Raise Lighter later on, but Raise Lighter is probably the easiest weapon to kill those captains with even now. It's just you don't do any DPS to the boss with.
If I remember correctly, like DrMjrKoval didn't like that huge thing with doing DPS with DrMjrKoval on Axis didn't come out. That was maybe a few weeks even after the raid. Like that wasn't even like a aha, this is what does it. It was, if I remember correctly, it was a few weeks after Wrath.
Yeah.
That people kind of figured it may have been after hard mode too.
There's a lot of snipers initially.
Yeah, lots of snipers and probably Gallahorn, iron
Yep,
iron Gallahorn at that point.
yep, and Sleeper, I believe too.
Yeah, which were the main sources of DPS: the high impact triple tap, casket mag snipers, and sleeper and Gallahorn.
Yep. But so after bringing people through, about 6 months after Wrath of the Machine dropped was Age of Triumph, when they brought all the raids up, and going through that with other people, on a consistent basis. Because when that first dropped, we were literally doing all of our characters on all the raids every week, probably for about a month
Mm-hmm.
after all the raids had dropped. So that's a lot of raids every week.
Yeah.
But I had gone through and at that point learned everything about all the raids. Like I had King's Fall before Age of Triumph. I had never, I'm trying to think of the different ones. So I had never called sides at War Priest. I just kind of knew what side was where and what they were calling and where we're supposed to stand.
Yeah.
I never took the gaze at Gorgoroth. I had never ran the relic at Oryx either, up until Age of Triumph. At Age of Triumph, I made it a point to learn all of those things, so that if I were to show people, I could explain it.
Yeah.
Same with Vogue running the relic at Templar with at Vogue. That's a whole art onto itself.
Hmm.
Going through all that stuff. Obviously, Wrath, I had already gone through and pretty much mastered. Using Sword of Crota, I'd never done that before. I had been carried through and just initially it was just like stand here up at the glass and
Stand at the window and shoot your.
shoot your rocket at
Yeah.
Crota. I didn't have Galahorn, but
So like getting in with Sherping, like do you prefer or would you prefer like say Sherping a team of 5 guardians that have never done a raid as opposed to a team of 5 that had done it? Like would you prefer like if you had to choose between the two? Like you had unlimited time, like time's not an issue.
it would definitely be 5 that haven't done it. And I've done that once.
I believe you did that with Spire of Stars, right?
Right. Spire of Stars.
Which is a very, very, very mechanic heavy fight, especially phase 1 and phase 2 of the fight are very heavily mechanic, and the ads are very intense. They seem a lot more aggressive than what they are in other raids for whatever reason in that fight.
Yeah,
And maybe
phase 1 is...
and maybe the proximity they are to you as well. They're pretty damn close to you for where they spawn.
Yeah. I had taken those 5 through. It took us a few chances, or a few tries at the end just to be able to get to a DPS phase. And funny thing is after Whisper had dropped is when I had done my, helps with them getting through. I had never done Whisper strat on him before. That was the first time we did it, and that's how we killed him.
Nice.
Was using Whisper the Worm.
Let's say you have like a team of 5 guardians, never have done whatever raid. Insert raid here. What we've got 10 now, and
3, 6, 10. Yep.
like what is the kind of mindset that you go to approach this? Because I know a lot of people try to Sherpa, or they'll put on LFG that they're a Sherpa, and they're not very good at it. They fail at it. Maybe they can get it done, but like what kind of mindset do you like use to approach like say 5 people that have no idea what's going on? They may have watched a YouTube video, they may have watched a couple Twitch streams, they may have tried the first encounter and failed. Maybe they got one of those really poor LFG experiences where somebody teleported them into Riven and they cluster bomb Riven and that's all they know of the raid. Like what is the approach that you take with 5 people that are ignorant to what's going on in the raid, or maybe ignorant to just the feel of what it feels like? Because I know watching it and doing it are 2 different things. So like what is the kind of mindset that, and how do you prepare yourself to getting in there?
So the way I usually do Sherpa or raid helps is I will probably, a lot of people would say, over explain the mechanics. A lot of people like to get in there and just learn them as they're doing them. But I like to explain everything. That way they can see the complexity in their heads. So when I explain how to do each specific part that each person's responsible for, they kind of have a general understanding of what's going on. And then the biggest thing that you need to have to be a Sherpa, it's not for everybody, and you have to be absolutely 100% patient. You cannot get frustrated when you're helping someone to get through. If you get frustrated, they're going to feel frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
If you show any kind of disgust, they're going to feel like shit.
Mm-hmm.
So you just keep plugging away at it. And if you see a weakness, try to correct the behavior that's being done incorrectly. For example, Spire of Stars with the plates and the buttons. That was a big one initially because we could not, for some reason, come up with a better name than plates and plates for both the little buttons up in the front by the doors and the big plate. It was getting a difference between calling one buttons and calling one plate. And making sure to say, when I'm doing, helps, is everybody off of your plates, everybody to your plate. Everybody to your buttons. Just little things like that. Just calling out during the raid. And I even do it while I'm with a completely competent group that can get it done in like 30 minutes, the raid.
Mm-hmm.
Is I'll say, everybody off your plates. Everybody already knows. It's just getting in the habit of doing that, and then making sure I express, as someone that is teaching, what I want to see, with the whole group. Like at this point, we should all be getting off our plates and going towards the button.
Okay. Like, say you kind of touched on it a little bit. Say you're having difficulties, maybe just one specific part, may even be one specific guardian, or maybe other people's guard, like maybe more than one. And you notice that maybe they aren't just quite grasping the concept of what's going on. Like, how do you overcome that small obstacle? Like, do you put yourself in their position? And do you change roles? Do you just try to explain it further? Like, what do you try to do in that situation?
It really depends on what it is. Like if they don't understand the difference between buttons and plates, I just kind of re-explain it. I try to ask questions to see if they really understand what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and at that point, it's nothing bad because if you're taking 5, even if it's just one new person in the raid, you're not going to know. Like, I had no idea how to run Relic.
Yeah.
I had no freaking clue what you're supposed to do with the damn thing. I just knew I was told stand on the plate, kill your knight. He spawns there. You shoot him, and then you run mid.
Yeah.
But like just knowing exactly what they should be doing in their specific role, and making sure that they know how to do it, and making sure they have the tools to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other thing. It's like you could be on those plates, in Spire of Stars, and you're using a sidearm and a sniper rifle, and you're not going to do much for ad clearing.
Yeah, because you don't ever preface a raid by going into like 5 people haven't done it, must have X weapon. You're just like, bring whatever you have.
At the very least, you can do multiple cycles on bosses.
Yeah. And that's a comfortability with mechanics. So I kind of see what the approach that you do, even if people have difficulties. You make sure that you understand every single part, every single role in a raid encounter. That you know that if X person is in X spot, you've been there, you've done it hundreds of times, hundreds of times, so you know how to explain it to those people. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Um.
And like suggesting loadouts, I'll do. Like you're on a plate, a good pulse or scout, or even a good long range hand cannon there would be good there. Like, Midnight Coup is really good in PvE. Maybe a shotgun because you're going to be up close and personal at some point with a bunch of ads. Just making little suggestions like that. You can use what you want. Those are probably the best options. It's not, everybody get on your Galahorns and let's go.
And this will kind of lead into the question following up to it. So, obviously, Shadow keeps coming out October 1st.
Mm-hmm.
The new raid comes out October 4th. What are you kind of hoping for as someone who is a Sherpa? I'm assuming that you're probably going to get a chance to actually play this day one because it's a Saturday. Normally, you don't get to because of work. What are you kind of hoping for in terms of this raid as someone who does Sherpa so many people through all the other raids? Like, what kind of things are you looking forward to in the upcoming raid, the Garden of Salvation?
So I'm hoping. So my favorite raid is Wrath of the Machines. I feel all the fights are really dynamic and they get you up close and personal with ads. I would like to see that again. Crown of Sorrow kind of does it. Scourge kind of does it, but not really. Like in Wrath of the Machine, you had waves of ads just streaming at you the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was Vasic, whether it was the Zamboni, or whether it was Axis. All 3 fights, you had waves of ads just coming at you. Crown of Sorrow's like, well, you get 3 acolytes here. And then little bit later, you get 3 acolytes.
Yeah.
A little bit later, you get 3 more acolytes.
It seems.
Yeah.
I know it was structured in Destiny 1, but it seems much more structured in Destiny 2. Like, here's 3 acolytes and 2 thrall, or here's 1 knight and then here's 2 acolytes.
Right.
It seemed to be a much steadier flow of ads, like you said, just in the Vosic fight, like coming from they kind of hid the spawn points. They're a lot further away from us, but it kind of seemed like there's just endless flow of ads coming at you in those fights.
Yeah. And it was like, so having all those ads coming at you lends you to be more creative with how you can control ads. Like, we came up with strats where you could actually pop bubbles on the side in Vosic and use a blinding bubble, with Armor of Light and maybe Dark Drinker, and then use a sniper for DPS, and then you would just be up in the bubble while ads try to come in and get you, be blinded, and then you just kill them all.
Mm-hmm.
And do the same with the captain. Or you could do another strat. My favorite thing was using Sun Charge, which is where you swing the hammer in a Solar Titan. You could do just anything. You could use Galahorn, to kill ads or to kill the captains that come out. Blade Dancer was another one I've done. Go invisible, go grab the ball, run back. Just all kinds of different creative ways you could do that encounter. Even like going into Axis fight, you could throw a bubble down where the captain spawns with the torch cannon at the bottom, blind him, and then just kill him immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could golden gun him, or you could throw a Nova Bomb on him, or you could smash him, or, there are so many ways you could go about it. It seems like a lot of things have kind of slanted to, there's like 2 or 3 usable, real supers.
So you would prefer maybe a fight that does have mechanics, but is a little bit more ad intense too? Because it seems like we've kind of gotten a few of those. Like they may be trying to mix them up. I think Vosic is a really good example of one that kind of combines mechanics. Maybe not so much. I mean, you throw a ball and you shoot a screen and you run into a door, so there's no white phase. We've kind of got something similar to that as far as like doors go with the white phase, with Callie in Last Wish. But it seems like we've kind of gone one way or the other. Like it's really heavy mechanics, like say a Gauntlet, where there's an ad phase, and then there's all the mechanics. There's no ads. How would would you enjoy like a encounter that was similar to Gauntlet, except for that whole time where you're actually having to do the actual mechanic, there were still ads? Like say they picked up the charge, they go to run around Gauntlet, and there's still ads. There's ads that come out after that.
Yeah. Like the Gauntlet ads. Like that whole raid is just an example of feedback that Bungie had taken going into Destiny 2.
Mm-hmm.
People had said raids had just turned into these DPS machine bosses, and the raids were essentially every encounter was just how much DPS can you throw on a boss.
Yeah.
So then they made a raid that was pretty much no bosses, all mechanic.
Yeah.
I think Wrath for me hit it perfect in terms of mechanics, ad clearing. So just for example, at the Vosic fight, you would get waves of dregs, and then you would get a captain. Then you would have a ball drop that you have to throw at the boss to drop a shield. Then there would be a monitor that pops up that you have to shoot. The whole time after that, you have dregs that are pushing up at you, throwing, crap at you. And then a little bit later, there'll be another ball that drops that you have to team up with your other rest of your raid group to throw balls at the boss to break his shield. And then another captain will and then the captains, teleport kind of like the Taken captains do now. And they were super strong. Kill, but it would be a confluence of you have these mechanics going on while also managing ads on the sides and in the middle. And if one side got overrun, all those ads would start spilling out and go to the other side.
And I don't recall, because I was not able to do Wrath day one. We were not, or Guardians were not very far off of Light when that came out, were they?
No, everybody was high powered.
Everybody was pretty much at, so what was that fight? That was 380 then?
I think the normal was 360.
And do you kind of recall maybe what you were the first time you went in?
I was probably about what the power was when we went in. We went in that Saturday and it dropped on Friday. I mean, I was in there the next day.
Because I know that Wrath was a relatively fast World's First. So we'll kind of get maybe touch on a little bit about World's First race here, just because a lot more people are going to be interested in it this time since it drops on a Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel like something like Wrath of the Machine, which I would have to say that it's probably my favorite raid too. I think I have the most fun in that raid. I haven't done it as much as I've done the Destiny 2 raids, but that's more of a nostalgia for me. There's lots of people that I played with that I don't play with anymore. People that introduced me to the game that I really enjoyed that raid for. But what if we had something like a contest modifier during Wrath of the Machine that said you're pretty much always going to be 15 to 20 light under? Like, how do you think that would have fared for a World's First race then? Because I believe the World's First race was completed in about like an hour 45, somewhere around there.
Yeah, so people were able to level up using the two blues method from Omnigul and Servitor Sepix Prime, I think
Mm-hmm.
it was. Both of those would drop on power blues.
I think you had been perfected then.
So they were able to essentially just repeatedly farm those guys to get their power up.
Mm-hmm.
And they would get those, running those, you would get your rep for Vanguard, and then you would get your packages, which would level you up. And it was just a lot of that, and people went into Wrath of the Machine super high in power, or super high in light. If there was a contest modifier, it definitely wouldn't have been done in an hour and a half. No way.
I'm just trying to think of because I know the ads were a little bit rougher. I'm just trying to think if the mechanics would have been, because a lot of people think about it. I see you're going to see it a lot here on Twitch and even on YouTube. You're going to see a lot on Twitch of people. We're getting ready for the next raid. We're playing the old raid. You're trying to figure out how to do mechanics, and it's never really the mechanics that it's not really figuring them out in Destiny raids anyway. That takes very long, aside from something like Vault. That apparently
Yeah.
we weren't even doing correctly to begin with.
Yeah.
That just got brute forced. But like, it didn't seem like to me like maybe Wrath and even some of the raids since then, like mechanics really aren't that difficult to figure out. So
Yeah.
like maybe something that offered us a little bit more. I don't know. Because I kind of know I've heard a lot of people that create the raids. They want to give you hints and clues on how the mechanics work. They don't
Yeah.
want it to be completely obvious, but they don't want it to be too vague. It's kind of far. We looked too far into it, like we did in Vault, and people still did in Vault. Which apparently,
Yeah.
if you just stood on the plates the whole time, you probably could have figured it out faster. But coming up with Shadowkeep, other than the raid, like what are you most looking forward to? The things that we know we're getting. So we know we're getting another dungeon. There's a lot more that has come out about seasons and about artifacts today with what Luke Smith released today. What are you looking forward to most, aside from a raid?
Aside from the raid, aside from the new system that's coming up for seasonal rewards, I'm just putting all these aside because it's big things. The moon content,
Mm-hmm.
Season of Undying content. All that's awesome. The thing I'm honestly looking forward to the most is Armor 2.0 and being able to do any activity that provides legendary gear, and it'd be on the new Armor 2.0 system, whether it's EP. My favorite one I want to get a set on is Prestige Leviathan armor.
You want that purple glow?
Yep, for 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to look like a pumpkin, you can go get the Eater of Worlds Titan armor.
Put Vanguard gloss on it.
Yep. I mean, there's just so many different sets you can think of. My favorite set on my hunter from year one was Errant Knight. I think it was the Errant Knight gauntlets, chest piece, boots, and then I think it was a Devastation complex helmet.
Mm-hmm.
For my hunter, the Crucible and Vanguard sets coming back from year one, so you can use your ornaments again. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Just being able having that whole new infusion of armor into the game, to where it's going to be meaningful armor. Like I have almost 2,000, almost 3,000 at this point Crucible tokens, and nothing to use them on because I have all the guns from the Crucible that I want. So I'm assuming we're going to get new Crucible guns, new Vanguard guns. then you have all the random rolls from 2.0 coming up too. It's just going to be a whole new infusion of loot into the game that's been one of the things that's been lacking in the last probably 6-7 months.
So I know you're a hunter main. Like, what kind of build with our Armor 2.0 are you looking forward to build like first? What are you gonna build it around?
It would depend on the mod. I enjoy, also being able to pull your exotics for 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the more I use Stompies, the more I like Stompies, and I don't really care about Bones of AO going away anymore from D1. I know a lot of people want those back, but Stompies are fine. Being able to use those, along with some sort of gunslinger build, I really hope one-shot knives come back to the game. I think bottom tree Hunter is in desperate need of something to give it some separation from, 6-shooter top tree,
Mm-hmm.
especially in PvP, and I think adding a one-shot knife to it. But I really enjoy the knife trick, middle tree, with Blade Barrage, being able to use the cooldowns between it and, having extra melee, cooldowns. And then you get your kills with the knives, which gives you more knives back, and it just keeps cycling through them.
Do you know what makes like complete perfect sense? And this is a bit of a departure from what we're talking about, but it makes complete perfect sense, and I never realized it before, is that you can ADS with a throwing knife. You can ADS your gun and aim your throwing knife.
Yep.
I never I just always was just like, it's a melee, I'm just gonna throw it, and it's like,
Yep.
well, not something
don't
I
have
ever
to do
thought
it
about.
blind.
Until somebody posts about that, and I'm just like, well, that makes totally sense. Like, why was I not doing that before?
Yeah.
So like, Shadowkeep drops here in about 5 weeks, 4 weeks. What's gonna be
4
the
weeks.
first thing that you do when you switch over to Steam and you load Destiny 2 up?
For one, go to the tower. See what's changed in the tower. Go get my Armor 2.0 set. Assuming I can. To me, it looked like it costed 250,000.
Yeah, they said it would actually be nothing. It was just a placeholder for that stream.
Yeah. So go pick up my 2.0 set. Probably not equip it. I highly doubt. Even they admitted you're probably not going to be using any 2.0 armor for a few weeks, unless you just started in the game. Probably hit the tower, see what the pinnacles are. What I like to do initially.
Mm-hmm.
Check out Eververse. See what stuff's there. Although you can do from the director now. It's not going to be at Tess Everest or Eververse anymore.
What kind of pinnacle weapons? Because I believe they only said that we're gonna have two, one from Gambit and one from Crucible, just in what they released today. What kind of pinnacle weapons would you like to see?
Did they really say that today?
Yeah,
Was that in the TWAB?
I believe that was in the TWAB. Let me look through here. I'm actually looking through it really quick. I'm looking through two new pinnacle weapons, one for Gambit, one for Crucible. It was actually in what Luke Smith wrote today.
Huh. So they're bypassing Vanguard.
So there's not Vanguard one.
That's weird.
Which the pinnacle weapons look like they are available for new light players. So this is something new. We can kind of talk about what Luke Smith wrote today that hadn't released about new light players. It doesn't matter whether you're new lighter coming in with Shadowkeep, you can patrol the moon. You have the opening mission of Shadowkeep. You have the two new stripes. You have all the Crucible updates, which we don't really know other than what Luke Smith said in the director's cut. Two returning PvP maps from D1, which is Widow's Court and Twilight Gap. The elimination of Crucible Labs, all armor 2.0. The Eye of the Gate Lord season artifact, new finishers, new pinnacle weapons, one for Gambit, one for Crucible, and then free seasonal rank rewards, which they can get even if you're a new light player. You can get the new exotic weapon, Ariana's Vow, 3 legendary armor sets, 2 legendary weapons, best of year 2 bright engrams, so people can finally get the ship that I wear all the time. Just glimmer and upgrade modules. So that's kind of neat that New Light is adding a lot more than what I actually thought it was. Even if you're just a New Light player, you can get a lot of stuff.
It's going to be one of those things where you're going to look at, especially if you're on cross save and on multiple platforms, is do you really need to buy Shadowkeep, on these other platforms?
Yeah, because I mean, unless you're doing stuff like raids or maybe the dungeons and stuff, like what do you? You just want to play Crucible with your buddies and Strikes with your buddies, like you don't even have to pay for a game. You get all this for free. Like you get a ton of really awesome shit for free.
Yep.
I'm trying to see if there's anything else in here that I want to point out before I let you go.
I wonder if the reduction in pinnacle weapons is change in their philosophy with pinnacle weapons.
What what do you mean by that?
Like they took the Vanguard one away, so there's not going to be a strike one.
I'm wondering if they looked at possibly the data between, what was used and they saw the Vanguard weapons really weren't used that much. I know that Loaded Question does get a lot more use on console, which I only play on PC currently, but I know Loaded Question got a lot more use on console just due to the fact of the sandbox there. And Recluse isn't as big of a monster as it is. But I'm wondering, especially like Oxygen, I literally I earned Oxygen and I have never fired it once.
Yeah.
I think it went into it got infused in Season of Opulence.
If scouts get a buff, Oxygen's gonna get much better.
Yeah.
The other thing is like Wendigo. See, I don't think it has to do with the weapon use. It might be with them not being able to come up with a good way to create an objective that isn't going to make the strike playlist a pile of piss.
To remove the AFKers from it, possibly, but I mean, really, the AFKers only were completing the strikes just to get the 40 you had to complete to get Wendigo.
Yeah, like if they were to put swords, like a pinnacle sword in Vanguard, you would have people just run around with swords the whole time.
Yeah.
Like they did with grenade launchers. Or people would do the thing where they just go out of the strike and go into a lost sector.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the biggest reason that the Vanguard one isn't there. And I think it's just with them coming up with ways to make an interesting quest, because just completing Gambit matches and completing Crucible matches isn't interesting.
No.
For a pinnacle weapon. I don't think they should have gone to the extreme with Mountaintop, where they create essentially these whole lobbies of just running all grenade launchers, because that's pretty crappy.
Did you see the changes to those quests that are coming this Tuesday?
Yes. Good change.
They are much, much easier to obtain now, so it's really good for the people that don't have them yet.
Yep.
Almost makes me wish that I hadn't ground out. Well, I still don't have Wendigo because I've just never been that interested in it. But I'm pretty sure that I can probably just load in on Tuesday and I have it because I'm that close to it.
Wendigo is, in my opinion, a weapon people should have. I think a lot of people also, think this. I think Lunafaction Boots is getting changed. And I think Rally Barricades are going to be doing something else as well.
What do you think that Rally Barricades would do? Do you think they would revert them back to what they used to do? Which was crouching reloaded?
I don't think there are going to be any reloading like that. I don't think there's going to be... I think, in my opinion, more than any weapon in PvE, the thing that ruins all raid encounters is not having to reload your gun.
You know what I was saying too? Even with all the people that are saying that Mountaintop might possibly going to get a nerf or spike grenades are going to nerf, we pretty much know they're not going to get one. There was some, I don't remember if it was, I think it was DMG on Reddit said that there's not anything that he said in his file, he control F'd, and there's not anything saying that anything about grenade launchers are getting nerfed.
Yep. If you make grenade launchers have to reload, they are instantly not as good DPS-wise. What is better DPS-wise at that point are sniper rifles.
Mm-hmm.
Whisper of the Worm instantly becomes very good again. You have other weapons like LMGs actually can possibly come back into the spotlight, especially like Delirium, which doesn't reload, or which can do an auto reload when you pick up a brick, or it can just hold like an insane amount in the mag.
Overflow, can you be a bit ridiculous on that?
Yeah. Then you also have, I think, a balance for rocket launchers is coming with this update too.
Possibly a minor buff to them. I hope
I
not.
think the mag.
I don't want to use rocket launchers again. Don't.
I think they're going to get all of them are going to get an adjustment. The reason they have one in the mag right now is because of auto reload. If they
Yeah.
didn't, it would have been very bad. So I think they're all going to go to 2 to 3 in the mag again. I think Truth is kind of proof of that.
Yeah, that may have been a test to
Yep.
kind of see how that was, and they really didn't see anything against having Truth have 3 in the mag.
So
It really doesn't even affect Crucible that much. I mean, the weapon's good enough in Crucible without that, but
take auto reloading out of every raid encounter. We have 6 raids in D2. Tell me, all 6 bosses, are they one cyclable without auto reload? Callus? Possible.
with every buff stacked, I don't know. That would be really interesting to see which ones were and which ones weren't. Obviously, we know some ones wouldn't be.
Because you could still run 3 wells.
Yeah, you'd still have
You
your
could
wells.
probably
You'd still
run a
have all your
community.
buffs.
You could probably run a community bubble in the middle. So you could dip in it between after the first one and the second plate. And then you could do it again when you go to the third plate. So you could probably get a Weapons of Light buff plus, wells. So it's very possible you could do Callus in one. It would be tough without the auto reload. I don't think you could do Argos without auto reload. Maybe if everybody's on Whisper.
I don't think that you could. I don't even think that you could do enough with Whisper. Well, yeah, you could, because you'd have 18 shots apiece.
Yeah.
If you did your buffs right, you could get Whisper.
I think Argos you could do with Whisper. Callus, it's hard to do it with Whisper because if you miss a shot, you're pretty well fucked.
Yeah, and the way he moves around and then his crit spot also moves could be a little bit difficult too. I was just trying to think about weapons that already have a bunch in the mag. So say, like I think Swarm can have 5 or 6 depending on your perks.
Mm-hmm.
So that, 36 of those, I mean, that's just spike grenades, so you would have to take away a tractor cannon, but
at that point, Wendigo, right, already does more damage than any other grenade launcher on just the 6 shots. If you got the weapons buff, which will stack with other buffs because it's a weapon buff.
that'd be really interesting to test out. That may be.
Currently, it does more. The problem is over the long term, it does less after you lose that damage buff.
I think
that's why Swarm does more.
That's a really good idea to see what raid bosses right now. Now, even if you can't one phase them, what could be possibly the fastest way to kill them without any kind of auto reload?
I think auto reload immediately makes it so. I think Spire and Argos. I think those two you could. Valcour and Argos. Argos? No.
Callus would just be weird because you have the plates. I'm just talking maybe a one phase, just a simple one phase. You could do it with Callus, but it wouldn't be a one plate.
The other two you probably could. I don't think it would be that hard, out of the realm of possibility that you could use Whispers, Weapons of Light, and a well on either of those.
Because that would pretty much be the strat for every single one of them. Just use Whisper and then stack all your buffs after that.
Riven? I think it immediately rules Riven out of being able to one cycle. I don't think you can get enough Whisper shots off in the time that she's vulnerable to be able to get her on one floor. I think it would force people to actually do Riven's mechanics again, and maybe that's part of the solution.
It would be really interesting to see Riven, because you could do 1 tractor cannon, Swarm of the Raven.
And you'd have to have another thing, because right now, even with it, you could literally unload all of your Swarm of the Ravens. And unless you're with a super coordinated group that has done it a lot, even then, you're still short on damage, and you need to start using shotgun ammo. And this isn't going to have time for you to reload. You'll get your shots for Swarm of the Raven, and then you have to reload, and that's going to take, maybe 3 or 4 shots that you would have been able to get off before that aren't going to happen now per character.
Yeah, I was just thinking of switching to a different weapon after that, like even if you didn't want to mess with the downtime of reloading.
Because even then, you go through all your shoddy shots, and then you got to reload your shotgun.
Yeah, or even merciless, because that was meta for a minute. Yep. On there.
Insurrection Prime, without auto reload, I don't think he can be one cycled.
Well,
maybe
I mean
with
that
Acreus.
was
maybe, and then you would have to be in very specific spots, and I highly doubt a lot of people could do that.
It just depends on your buffs, and because I mean the strat for him for a while was just use Whisper. And I'm pretty sure you can empty your whole mag of Whisper easily in 1 damage phase. Like, it's not even a question. Like, you can do that easily. You can get like 30 something shots of Whisper off in 1 damage phase.
Yeah. And then that leaves the last one, big guy. I don't think you could do Whisper on him.
Galron.
You'd have to find a different spot to stand, because you just get mugged by ads. And you throw 1 shot off, and Whispers. That's the thing too with Whisper, is you miss 1 Whisper shot, or it doesn't proc, and your whole DPS cycle's fucked. Because of how long it takes to reload. And then to reset, and then you gotta wait for Whisper Breathing to proc back in.
That's really something interesting to think about.
So I think removing that is going to change a lot of the game. Strike bosses, I think, will still die super.
Well, yeah. How many times do you really have to reload with strike bosses?
Yes.
I mean, pretty much with strike bosses, if you get 1 buff or debuff on the boss and 3 supers, they're pretty much dead anyway.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is it's not even like you're stacking all these different buffs to make this happen. It's literally just tractor cannon plus well at this point.
Yeah.
It's 1 buff plus 1 debuff. It's not like you're, accumulating weapons of light and then getting a empowering rift buff and then getting, some other buff that's adding extra damage and, more things. It's literally just 1 buff currently and 1 debuff currently. That's all you're applying to enemies or to those bosses.
So anything else? Well, we're going to wrap this up really quick. Anything else that you're looking forward to in Shadowkeep that we haven't covered yet?
But besides all the new loot, all the new activities coming, cross save. I'm going to throw cross save in that season. That's been pretty damn amazing so far.
Yeah.
Being able to log into PlayStation and go, oh, look, it's my characters from PC. And have those weapons there. And all my progress there instead of being separate. PvP's changing. That's a good thing. I like the changes, the solo queue with the PvP comp. I hope they keep their pinnacle weapon for comp. I hope they keep it similar to Revokers. Instead of needing to hit Fabled.
Yeah.
I've always been of the mind that they should reward Fabled and Legend with other things than weapons.
Give me unique armor.
Either ornaments for your armor, emotes, emblems. It's something even out of game. You get this award that gives you this awesome pin.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the Crucible pin, but it's colored instead of just all gold.
That'd be interesting. Well, thanks for spending time. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Doc. I really appreciate it, man.
Oh, no problem.
And I hope you have fun, and I look forward to playing with you here in Shadowkeep, dude.
Yep. Same.